Hey guys, it's Tiff. So today I thought I'd do a draw my life video, but an equestrian edition. So yeah. So I was born in Germany, and from a very young age, my parents would always love to take me to the local fairs. And there were always pony rides there, and I remember I'd always beg them to let me go, and ride them. When I was 6, I moved to Perth in Western Australia. And still, I would obsess over any horse I saw at a circus or in a random paddock. It was very clear I'd caught the equestrian bug. At school, I had this really, really good friend whose name was Maddie, and she had her own horse, and I remember being so jealous of her. And at recess and lunch, we'd play with the benches with another girl and pretend we were horses and run around in the little stable we made and get angry when people took our benches. A year and a half later, we moved to a small town called Albany, 4 hours south of Perth, and it was a little country town. And this is where I started riding. And the first horse that I started riding, her name was Misty, and I fell in love with her. And the next week I went and she was colicking, so I wasn't allowed to ride her. So I rode this other horse who I didn't really like, and so I don't even remember his name. So the next week I was put on a horse called Colette, and she was black, and I thought she was the biggest horse I'd ever seen at the time, but I'm pretty sure she would have only been about 13 to 14 hands. She didn't like to move, and I remember one time just standing in the middle of the arena while everyone just trotted around me, and she just really just didn't want to move. And so my trainer suggested that I move on to a little pony who changed my life, Sammy, and she was the hardest horse on the property to catch, and me and my trainer would always have to try and corner her while she ran around. She's probably around 10 hands, but she was the speediest little pony.
I can't draw, and I'm just realizing this now. It's so bad. I'm so sorry. I'm actually trying to make this good, and it's really not working. I'm sorry.
I spent about 6 months in the beginners group before I was asked to move into the big group, and it was like the happiest day of my life. But here in the big group is where I had my first fall. I was going up a hill, and my pony spooked, and my foot got caught in the stirrup, and I was dragged for about 50 meters, and all the skin of my back came off, and so my mum had to come and pick me up and put me in the bath for 8 hours to scrub my back with a toothbrush. And she ended up having to take me to hospital, and the doctor wanted to put a second skin on my back, and it was like a plaster that they put on burn patients, which peels off when the wounds heal. It took about 8 months until all the second skin peeled off, and it never left any scar. But the week after my fall, my mum had gone out to buy me a back protector, and I was back on Sammy the next week, and they didn't lead me off the lead line for a solid year after that fall. When I started to grow too big, I rode some other horses on the property, and I remember being in love with this Appaloosa called Oliver, and some girl named Montana also liked him, so it was always a battle between who got there first. And my childhood best friend Christine and I were obsessed with horses, and she rode with me, and we'd always talk about horses and stay into the afternoon to see if they needed any horses exercise during that lesson, so we could ride for free and twice in one day. So I soon moved on to Chuckles, who was a dapple grey gelding, and he still holds a very special place in my heart. He was the only horse on the property that needed a Dutch gag, and he was very sassy. He was the horse that got me over the big ties, which was everyone's dream at that stables. And when I got news that we were moving to Sydney, Australia, I wanted to buy Chuckles, but it just wasn't ideal, and so we didn't. We picked up and left off, and luckily I found a place I'm still at today. My parents were talking to this lady, and she knew someone who was a riding teacher, so I started having lessons with her, and she started to teach me like the real like how to ride, and I was always asking questions and wanting to know more. I started to lease Bliss, and I absolutely fell in love with her. And on September the 1st, 2012, I bought her, and under the instruction of my very, very tough coach, who always told it to me straight, we progressed a lot, and I really thought that I was getting far on her, and she was such a good first horse for me. And when Ree moved to the US, she gave her students Beck's number, so that's when I started having lessons with Beck. One day I found Bliss lying down in her paddock, and I knew something was wrong, and she was colicking, and she had to go through major colic surgery. And on September 11th, she had to be put down, and it was very sad for me. It was very hard for me to get over it. So after that, we went looking for horses, and I tried a lot of horses, and I have a story time about that on my channel. And eventually, we found Bart, and of course, I fell in love with him instantly. And we all know that my coach was not so hot on him because he didn't like to jump very much. He was very, very scared of it and thought that the jumps were just very scary. And Beck always just told me to be encouraging and just nurture him into it. And eventually, he just started loving it. Loved he loved getting praise. So after a while, he grew on Beck, and she started really liking him as well. And we started competing, and he was going clear in the 85 and 90s. And yeah, now he's on break for 2 months until I finish the HSC, and he's loving it. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.